Here's Brody Brazil.
So here's how we have it now. In the last, at this point, probably 44 hours, the NHL has added 23 players to the COVID protocol list. I think some additional coaches tonight. It is quickly multiplying within the league. They have more than 30 players right now on the COVID protocol list, which is of enough concern itself, right? For the league to sustain, to keep going, to not have to reschedule too many games to the point that they can't eventually make up for this. So that is a level of concern. But the bigger thing is, how do you do this and mix in the Olympics, which are supposed to start February 3rd through the 20th? And by the way, if you're the Sharks, I mean, Timo Meier's name's out there, Erik Karlsson's name's out there for Sweden and Switzerland for Timo, and Tomas Hertl for the Czech Republic. And I don't know statuses. I don't know their decisions. I mean, hard to probably say no if you're invited. But now what we do know from Beijing specifically is that if you test positive while you're over there, it's not just a 1 week, 10-day, 14-day quarantine like we've seen commonly in the NHL. It's anywhere from 21 days to 5 weeks, 3 weeks to 5 weeks of quarantine in China, meaning that, you know, hypothetically, and the tournament's only 17 total days. If you were to get sick near the end of the tournament, you are in deep trouble. You can't leave the country. You can't come back to North America. Now you're putting the NHL team that you're with in jeopardy, in trouble. And look, these are all the very best players from across the league getting to go over there. And that brings up what I was saying before. The frustrating part is it took so much back and forth negotiation, conversation to actually get the players kind of approved to be in this situation. Now they're at this juncture where, you know, COVID and the fear of testing positive and the unknown of even how the situation is going to be in the next 6 weeks, you know, it casts a huge doubt over all this. Whereas I think 6 weeks ago, we would have looked at it and said, yeah, the NHL is going to be in the Olympics and we're glad to see him back. So frustrating, uncertain. There's so many words you could use to describe this right now, but it does feel like, and the NHL, as I do this tonight, I don't know when people will watch this, maybe even later, maybe you know more about this later, but the NHL is going hard right now with research and their own doctors to try and figure out how can we do this? How can we also fix their own problem in the league, right? The Sharks are the only team that have gone through COVID this year and didn't postpone or suspend a game. You've seen multiple other teams shut it down. Calgary is the most recent one for, 2 days, 3 days, 2 games, 3 games, whatever, depending on how many players. There's a lot of people looking back and saying, well, that was unfair that the Sharks had to play through it. Well, who would have known? The Sharks played some of their best hockey, actually, during that span. Chelsea's here, and you remember that, right?
Oh, yeah. That was the charcuterie
era.
Yes.
It
was good to see some young guys.
Makes me hungry for appetizers, but it also makes me recall, yeah, you're right. Some that was some inspiring hockey that team played, and some of those guys came out of nowhere.
I feel like that was a good point in time for the team because they really proved like they could do it, they could push through it. But at the same time, it kind of felt like we were the test dummy for, here's a team with 7+ on protocol. What are we going to do?
Well, they were lucky because they had the Barracuda in San Jose, right? Their minor league team was not out on the road. And also, I think the Sharks may have wanted to play through it, though, because if you start postponing those games against Eastern teams, how do you go back? Like, how do you replay a game against Montreal? Like, or how do you have the Habs come all the way back out west? Or like those were difficult. That was a difficult portion of the season to recreate. For the basically 4 or 5 games that they played, but minus 7 players and minus your head coach. I don't know that any other team since then. I think some teams have had 10 players.
Yeah, but they had postponed games.
Right, exactly. No team has had it that bad and not missed a single game. So in retrospect, was it the worst thing for the team? No, but I don't know that them going through that was beneficial at all. And I understand the sentiments of people who now look at it and say, what? You're right, test dummies. The Sharks were the first to go through it. So
they didn't know what to do, so it was just like, but I suppose when 7 teams it happens to, they're like,
Now
we should maybe do something.
They've set a precedent. They've
Yeah.
set a little bit more of a precedent.
Yeah.
So I'll go back to this with my just final thoughts on the Olympics. I think it seems unlikely at this point because of the possibilities of one player testing positive and being positive, and that is going to set off a chain reaction. Then you have to obviously test everybody else, and you can't even put players anymore, I think, in bubble situations for even 3 weeks for this hockey tournament. I think the league and its players and its best players went through this enough last year and even this season before that, where they completed the year, at a couple rinks across North America, Toronto and Edmonton. But they've already gone through enough to make seasons happen. And a couple people in the hockey community have actually said to put those guys in bubbles, even for 3 weeks, it's not mentally fair to them with everything going on in the world. And then to know that potentially, 3 weeks in a bubble and you might spend another 5 weeks here at the end of this if all goes wrong. Frustrating. I understand it's a calculated gamble. I just feel like a lot of people are going to look at this and say, why are we doing this again? And I hope it doesn't get to the point where there's doubt on the NHL continuing its season and having to use, that pause of games in February, having to move it forward to shut the league down, to get rid. I don't even want to go down that road. But you understand this could get a lot different, could get better, could also get worse.